Well, after the high of the last video talking about being number one in the Western Conference, do we start considering these guys Stanley Cup contenders? We already got this guy in town. Why not dream and bring this guy home too? It's time for another episode of Hi there, it's Brett Hornby here. Welcome back to another episode of my Calgary Flames in 6. We're up to episode 7 here. So where we cover my Calgary Flames in various game segments. And right now, we'll be concentrating on games 31 to 36 here. And if you go back to my last episode, after 30 games, the Calgary Flames were number one in the Western Conference here. And as we get through another segment here, I'm going to start asking this question here. Are the Calgary Flames, this year's Calgary Flames, do we consider them, legitimate Stanley Cup contenders here? I mean, as we go through the video here, Calgary's hanging in there overall with other teams that myself and many other hockey pundits out there agree that those teams are Stanley Cup contenders, but we're starting to hang out with them at this point as we get into the holiday season here. So, if you enjoy everything I do on my YouTube channel, where I cover my Calgary sports, or do some personal vlogs, or scenery videos, or anything else in between, just make sure you hit like, subscribe, and, hit that bell icon if you need to be notified right away when I post something. So anyway, let's get to episode 7 of my Calgary Flames in 6. And gee, wasn't it that too long ago? Let's say you go back to episode 3 there that I needed some hard stuff to talk about, one game in particular, but it seems like that might have been the turning point for the season here. So, all things considered, for this 6-game segment, it was a little bit of a mixed bag as it had everything, but as the numbers are backing up here, are we Stanley Cup contenders here? So let's bring up my notes here for this episode. As I always do, I have my notes on Google Docs here, and I always say it's handy to make it on the go here and edit it, and it's a lot neater than scribbling all over that what I used to do, and saves the environment. It's never a bad thing to do that. So, let's go back to first game for this segment. Game number 31. If you go back to Sunday, December the 9th here, the Calgary Flames took on the Edmonton Oilers on the road at Rogers Place. 7 p.m. puck drop there, and, it always sucks to lose to Edmonton, but definitely sucked this time as it was a 1-0 game here. All I could say is Connor McDavid scores the only goal in the first period, and just like how David Riddick here in Calgary has taken over the reins in net, Mikko Koskinen has taken over the reins in net for the Edmonton Oilers here. He had 24 saves in the shutout. David Riddick had 29 for the Calgary Flames, but I felt the Flames were flat in this one. He's ready to throw everything out the window when it comes to the Flames and Oilers here, but the Oilers have actually been looking a lot better and definitely been more defensively sound since bringing Hitch in last month, placing Tom McLellan here, and this ended a 5-game winning streak here, but the Flames definitely built up a good thing going here, but can't win them all, but it always hurts to lose to Edmonton. The other thing I can highlight in this one in the first period is that Anthony Peluso, he was only up for this game so he can have a little dance with Milan Lucic, but that's about it. So that was a Battle of Alberta. It was pretty tame other than that one fight. It was pretty boring for Battle of Alberta here, but maybe this will be the year that finally the Flames and Oilers will meet in the playoffs and rekindle like it was back in the good old days. So anyway, if you want something wild here, let's go to game 32 here. Wednesday, December 12th. It was back home at the Scotiabank Saddledome. it was odd that this game started at 6:30, but that was more. There's a lot more of what made this game very odd here. It was, the Flames outplayed the Philadelphia Flyers here, and ultimately got rewarded with the win, but it was won in a very unorthodox fashion here. We outshot the Flyers this one, 41-19, and the Flyers were getting towards the end of Dave Haskell's tenure as head coach. The team, has gone through changes in management there, and eventually the writing was on the wall, and this was one of the last few games that Dave Hackstall was coach of the Philadelphia Flyers before Scott Gordon took over last week, but Flyers still put up a little bit of a fight here, just like in your mailbox, but how I sum this up is that Sam Bennett scored first in the first here, and then after the second, it was 4-3 for the Philadelphia Flyers. I'll highlight that Travis Sanheim, the former Calgary Hitman, opened up the scoring, and it was 4-3 Philadelphia after 2 periods here, and it looked like Sean Couturier scored the go-ahead goal, the second of the game for Philadelphia. It was 5-3 with 9 minutes to go in the third period, and then let's cue the comeback here, as here comes the comeback here. We pulled the goalie, put the extra attacker on the ice, got down to the final minute. We were attacking in the Philadelphia zone. Rasmus Andersson definitely picked the right time to score his first NHL goal there. Made it 5-4 with about a minute and a half left in the third. Now it's down by 1. Once again, the goalie pulled, extra attacker on the ice, getting down to the nitty-gritty. We got into the Philadelphia zone here, and Sean Monahan, excuse me, with 7 seconds left, top of the face-off circle, buries this one. It's 5-5 suddenly. It looked like it was 5-3 Philadelphia. Just like that, it's 5-5 going in overtime. And then in overtime, Johnny Gaudreau scored the overtime winner against his childhood team. He grew up in near Philadelphia there. So Johnny Gaudreau scores it 35 seconds into the game. So the Calgary Flames down 5-3 with a minute and a half left to go in the third. Wound up winning this game 6-5 in overtime. So another wild one. Let's highlight some leaders here for the Flyers. Sean Couturier actually had 2 goals and assists there, and Claude Giroux had 2 assists. And then the Flames, Matt Tkachuk, he one of the best playmakers for the team right now, had a big night with 4 assists, and and Sean Monahan 2 goals and assists, including that tying goal with 7 seconds left. And Sean Monahan started to prove he's one of the clutch forwards in the league, and someone if you're not a Flame, you don't want to see him having the puck late in the game, because he scored a few clutch ones, in his young career here. And then both Johnny Gaudreau and Mark Giordano had 3-point games with a goal and 2 assists here. One thing to highlight in this game was that if you looked at the box score there, Philadelphia had a big second period there. Mike Smith played the first 2 periods there, and then Dave Riddick took over, but it wasn't because of they wanted to make a goaltending change due to performance. Actually, Mike Smith tweaked something in this game, and he turned out to be alright, but Dave Riddick finished it. So that was definitely another wild game here, and the Flames are definitely the best team in the league at coming back in the third period here so far, which raises back to my initial question for this episode here. So anyway, game 33, the Flames went on the road on Saturday, December the 15th. They went to the XL Energy Center with some afternoon delight. It was 11 a.m. puck drop. Take on the Minnesota Wild here, and last time the Minnesota Wild were here, there was that Matt Dumba had that high hit on Michael Backlund, and up to this point in this episode, he hasn't been back in the lineup here, but he knew he was going to have to dance here, and right away, early in the game, Matthew Tkachuk had a little dance with Mr. Matt Dumba here, which we kind of expected that with the motions carrying forward from the last game. As well, there was a couple more fights in the first period that happened late. Mark Giordano fought with Matt Hendricks and Sam Bennett. I think he's starting to be more suited as a checking forward who can, dance with someone else. He danced with Ryan Sugar late in the first, and hockey term, you say you want to dance with someone, you mean fight. But that was basically the first period there. Mark Giordano scored the first goal of the game in the first period before he fought here. And how to summarize this game, this was definitely a hard-fought defensive battle here that the Flames managed to pull one out. I mean, it was a total team effort here. I mean, like I said, Mark Giordano scored the first goal in the first period. And then Jordan Greenway for the Minnesota Wild tied it up in the second period. And one thing that Matt Tkachuk is great at is not only being a pest for the opposition, but setting up plays. But he actually scored the game-winning goal here in the third period with 8:45 minute in the third period. And then Dave Riddick closed the door with 34 saves in the win. And it was a 2-1 win for the Calgary Flames against the Minnesota Wild here, which, it's always good to collect points against Central Division teams, especially when it comes down to playoff races here. And as I said, we expected some extracurriculars here given what carried forward from the last game here. So game 34, the next afternoon, which happened on Sunday, December 16th, the Calgary Flames went to the Enterprise Center for some more afternoon delight. And with a 1 p.m. puck drop, this was 1 p.m. Mountain Time, and took on the St. Louis Blues, and we definitely gave the Blues some blues here, as they definitely haven't looked well since they made a coaching change. I mean, they let Mike Yeo go, last month for Craig Berube, and St. Louis seems to have looked worse since that coaching change, and the Flames definitely took advantage here, scored early and often in the first period. They had 4 goals in the first period there, especially with 3, late in the first, and then it was 5-2 for the Flames after 2 periods here, and then Calgary scored 2 more in the third period here. And this game, actually, Michael Backlund got back into the lineup after the injury he took there earlier against the Minnesota Wild in the last episode there. So what the highlight with this game is that Michael Backlund returned to the lineup, but Alan Quinn, a recent call-up, he actually scored 2 goals in this game, which he was a depth signing that the Calgary Flames signed. If you go back to my free agency video there, where we talked about the Flames and what they did in free agent frenzy there, he was one of the depth forwards to bring in some more organizational depth. He came from the New York Islanders there, and he's potted a few goals here recently. So yeah, the Flames had many contributions throughout in this game in the 7-2 win. Johnny Gaudreau, 2 goals and assist. Elias Lindholm, who you have to say, going back to this team contenders, Elias Lindholm, you got to think this guy could be a favorite for a Selke nominee. He had a goal, 2 assists, and as previously mentioned, Alan Quinn, two goals here. And David Riddick made 26 saves in the win, and in this game they officially declared Mike Smith okay, that they did call up John Gillies from Stockton for backup goalie, but he didn't play at all, so he was sent back to Stockton there. So that was those 2 games in 2 days, or 2 afternoons, and both wins here. So to wrap up the 3-game road trip here, game 35, Tuesday, December 18th, the Calgary Flames hook on the Dallas Stars there, and I think things dried up after St. Louis here, because unfortunately the Flames lost this one at the American Airlines Center at 6:30 puck drop, as we lost this one 2-0, but maybe this is what you could hold back to saying, are we contenders for the Cup yet or not? But this was just as frustrating as that Edmonton Oilers game where Flames looked a little flat there. Dallas right now seems to have our number here, and maybe, end of a road trip, looking ahead to the next game, which I'll get to in a minute here about the next game here, but overlooking the schedule here, knowing you got a tougher opponent ahead here. But all I can highlight with this game is that Ben Bishop, he definitely stood tall, literally and figuratively, with a 24 save shutout. against the Flames. Jamie Benn, Radifaska put it behind the net for the Dallas Stars here, and unfortunately, this was not Calgary's game here. And one thing to highlight here is that another guy that got called up recently, Kirby Reichel, who we acquired in the offseason for Hunter Shukirik, he made a debut for this game for the Flames, as Sam Bennett was out for that game. So that was the 35th game of the season. But everything came down to this last game, game 36. We were taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning at home at Scotiabank Saddledome here, and history aside, I mean, it still stings. Almost 15 years later, I'm not finishing the job in 2004 here, but the Tampa Bay Lightning right now are the top team in the league here, and given how the Flames have been rolling recently, this was definitely a great test to see if these guys are for real or not, and definitely turned out to be one heck of a game here. Maybe so far the best game of the year, even though we didn't quite get the result we wanted, because it was a 5-4 loss in the shootout here, and it went to the 7th round of the shootout here. But the game summary here was that the Flames started off strong in the first period here. Andre Palat did actually score first for the Tampa Bay Lightning there early in the first, and then the Flames answered with 3 goals here. Sam Bennett, Sean Monahan, and Michael Backlund scored for the Flames, so we were up 3-1 going into the second period here. Then in the second period here, the Lightning struck twice. No pun intended, but they did strike twice, including guys from Steven Stamkos. I mean, I know he had one shot saved by Riddick on the breakaway there, but Steven Stamkos is one of the top scorers in the league for a reason, and now it's Killorn. So next thing you know, it was a 3-3 game. I went into the third period, and Dan Girardi scored the go-ahead goal here with about 5 minutes left in the third period. And if this happened last year, I think that would have been it. There might have been an empty netter and the game was over. But this Flames team, they've been showing heart and desire in the third period. And a couple minutes later, with about 2.5 minutes left in the third period, Johnny Gaudreau on a breakaway scored it to tie it up at 4, and it was 4-4 going into overtime here. But I think in overtime here, Louis Domingue, who actually has been picking up the slack pretty well for Andrei Vasilevsky for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and that he literally stood on his head there because Calgary outplayed the Lightning here in overtime. I know that, look at the highlights here, Sean Monahan had 3 good chances in overtime here. Domingue stolen them all. I mean, Monahan, his best area where he does damage is on top of the face-off circle, and Flames couldn't solve Louis Domingue in overtime here, so this game needed a shootout here. And it was started off with Victor Hedman and Sean Monahan each had a goal in the first 3 rounds of shootout. And it wasn't until the 7th round that JT Miller scored the shootout winner. And, I still feel like, just like with Edmonton, since June 2004, it always stings to lose to the Tampa Bay Lightning, especially how that series played out. Went to Game 7 and ran out of gas there, but, then there was all that controversy in Game 6 there. But, I still say I'm holding my head up high for the Calgary Flames here, because this was definitely a big test for the team, and see where we're at. And we played there with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and right now when I get through the standings here, they're actually running away a little bit in the President's Trophy race here. But it was definitely a great game and a great effort despite the shootout loss. But shootout, it's a coin flip or a crapshoot here. So anyway, despite all the scoring here, only one player had a multi-point game for the Tampa Bay Lightning. That was Nikita Kucherov with 2 assists. And then the Flames had Johnny Gaudreau and Sam Bennett each had a goal and assist. So there was a lot of offense spread around in this game. And David Riddick had 32 saves in the shootout loss there. So when it comes to injuries here, we're still waiting on a couple of defensemen, both Yusuf Valimaki and Michael Stone. They've been on the shelf there for a while, and Michael Frolik on forward is still hurt, but there's word on the street to hear that he might be back for this next segment here. So maybe slowly we're getting healthier here, but with both Valimaki and Stone being hurt, I mean, the top four has been established with Giordano and Brody, and they definitely clicked it again there. And then Noah Hannafin has definitely fit in nicely with Travis Hamnick there for the second pair. But the third pair, a lot of the time, it's actually been Oliver Shillington and Rasmus Anderson. And Rasmus Anderson, we definitely knew for a while there that he was ready to play. But then there's some games that Shillington comes out and Dalton Prout comes in if he needed a little more, a little more muscle and maybe a little more experience back there. But I still think Oliver Shillington is better than Dalton Prout there. But that's basically been our defense bottom pairing here. It's been two rookies here, and as when I go through the numbers here, we've been excelling defensively, and that's definitely been one of the things that Bill Peters has stressed since he took over as head coach of this team. So now let's get back to that question: are we Stanley Cup contenders yet? Because after 36 games, the Flames are 22-11-3. We have 47 points in the standings. That puts us number one in the Pacific Division and 4 points ahead of the San Jose Sharks. And we have a plus 26 goal differential. At home, we're 11-3-3. And on the road, we're 11-8-0. So we've won just as much at home and as we do on the road, but we've definitely been a little more dominant at home, especially in front of the Sea of Red here. And in the last 10 here, we're 7-1 here. I mean, if you follow the Hockey News feed on Facebook, sometimes they highlight the hottest 10 teams and the coldest 10 teams, and they look at their last 10 games record. And more recently, these guys have been in the hottest 10, living up to our name, the Flames. But we've had some tough years here, more than good years right now. But that's where the Flames rank when it comes to the Pacific Division. Now, if you look at the Western Conference here, we're 1 point behind Winnipeg for first in the West, and we're 1 point behind Nashville, or ahead of Nashville in the West here overall. And those are two teams that many hockey pundits said in the West were Stanley Cup contenders here. Everyone thought Winnipeg and Nashville were going to be contenders for the Cup of the West, and people thought also with the addition of Erik Karlsson for the San Jose Sharks, they'd be there too. But San Jose and Erik Karlsson, it's been a slow start for them. But now, if you look at overall, Calgary's number 4th overall in the league here. Both Winnipeg and Toronto were 1 point. They're 1 point ahead of us right now with 48 points. And then, as I mentioned, the Tampa Bay Lightning, they're first overall with 56 points. So Tampa Bay is well ahead of everybody else when it comes to the overall standings here. But Tampa Bay, Toronto, those people, many pundits looked at those two teams as special contenders. I mean, Tampa Bay's been a strong team the last few years, and Toronto with their young forwards, and then adding John Tavares at free agency, and then Washington and the whole Metro Division's definitely been a little slow here, but you can't count out the Washington Capitals from after what they did and how Alexander Ovechkin's looking. You could throw in the Washington Capitals in that mix here. So, the Calgary Flames right now, we're hanging in there overall in the league with teams that people said at the start of the year, hands down, they're Stanley Cup contenders. I think, the Flames are playing better than I expected. I expected them to be good enough to get a wild card and make the playoffs here, but then there's definitely been some teams that are doing better than I thought, and there's been a lot more that are doing worse than I thought. So now if you look at team rankings here, special teams has definitely been a lot more special for the Calgary Flames here. As power play, we're hitting at 22.4%. That puts us 10th in the league, top third in the league. And then our penalty kill has gotten much, much better after a very bad start here. We're at 80.5% here. That puts us 13th in the league, so the top half of the league. If you look at just half top and bottom half in the top half for both penalty kill and special teams. And then going back to our great defense, we're third in the league in shots against at 28.2, so we're definitely great at suppressing shots, and that was definitely one of the strong points of the team, especially the one that went to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2004. And then face-off wins, that's definitely one thing that Bill Peters has stressed when he took over his team, get possession right away. We're winning 52% of our face-offs. That puts us fourth in the league, tied with Anaheim here. So, this team is looking great so far here. And let's also look at some player stats here. I'm going to go on the website as opposed to the app here because I'll just read the whole line here. But right now, Johnny Gaudreau is leading the team in scoring, 36 games. He has 16 goals, 31 assists for 41 points. And then second in team scoring, Matthew Tkachuk, after 36 games, 15 goals, 26 assists, and 41 points. So, and then Sean Monahan, after 36 games, he has 21 goals, 19 assists, and 40 points here. So these guys are definitely over a point-a-game pace. And then Elias Lindholm here, he's definitely going to shatter his career best after 36 games. 17 goals, 21 assists, and 38 points. And then rounding up top five, this guy's definitely having a Calder type season that you got to seriously consider Mark Giordano a Calder candidate. In 34 games, he missed the 2 there, unfortunately, with that suspension. Still contributing with 6 goals and 29 assists and 35 points here. So that's definitely the top 5 there. And the other day I was looking at the standings there, and those top 5 of the Flames are in the top 35 or so in league scoring here. And I think still at this point, the Flames are the only team to have 5 players with 30 point getters. So, that goes back to the initial question here. And then when it comes to goaltending here, I mean, these numbers are definitely looking better here after 20 games played. I mean, both goalies have played about the same now. In 20 games played, Riddick started 17 games. He's 11-4 with 2 overtime shootouts. And his goals against average is .229. Save percentage, .923 with 1 shutout here. And he's played 1,047 minutes. And the other thing the Hockey News highlights here is goals against, or not goals against, our save percentage. And Dave Riddick's consistently been in the top 10 in save percentage here. And then Mike Smith, 20 games, started 19. He's actually looking a lot better when he has actually played. He's 11-7 with 1 overtime loss. His goals against average is actually just under 3 now at .299, and his save percentage is .888, which actually is a lot better than it was. It's gone up at least 10% with 2 shutouts, and he's played 104 minutes. So I think we have a nice tandem here if to get David Riddick more playing time, and Mike Smith, if he can accept the role of being backup and mentor, veteran presence here. I don't think this goaltending is going to be as much of an Achilles heel as it looked on paper at the start of the year. So before I wrap up this video here, let's look ahead what will be episode 8 here when we talk about games 37 to 42 here. So game 37, which will be the last game before Christmas here, which will be on Saturday, December the 22nd. The St. Louis Blues come to the Scotiabank Saddledome. Some afternoon delight, 2 p.m. And then game 38, Thursday, December the 27th. Another contender that Flames will be playing here is they'll be going to Winnipeg to take on the Winnipeg Jets at the Bell MTS place. 6 p.m. drop. And then game 39, we'll see what happened after the first 2 games here. Saturday, December 29th, the Vancouver Canucks come home to town here. Scotiabank Saddledome with an 8 p.m. puck drop on Hockey Night in Canada here. So we'll see how the Vancouver Canucks and Calgary Flames will do after being the first 2 games of the year. That's game 39. And game 40, the annual New Year's Eve game, but the team has been different every year. We'll see how we do against the San Jose Sharks here as the San Jose Sharks come to town on Monday, December 31st. That's a 7 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome. And then the Flames start off 2019 on the road here, and this will be the start of a road trip here, as on Game 41, Wednesday, January the 2nd here. The Calgary Flames take on the Detroit Red Wings in Detroit at the Little Caesars Arena. 5 p.m. puck drop, and actually the Detroit Red Wings have looked a lot better than expectations were at the start of the year, and then wrap up what will be episode 8 here on Game 42. Thursday, January 3rd, the Calgary Flames go to TD Garden, 5 p.m. puck drop, to take on the Boston Bruins. So I'm going to say there's a couple games here that the Calgary Flames should try to get some points on, but we'd like to see how we stand with the Winnipeg Jets, and how we do against the San Jose Sharks, and take advantage of some points available on the road here. So that's my Calgary Flames in 6 here. This was episode 7 here, and I just want to close it out again and say, are we Stanley Cup contenders here? Is this sustainable? We're hanging with those teams right now. Amazing third period comebacks, playing with the contenders here. But, if you enjoy everything I do on my YouTube channel, just make sure you hit like, subscribe, as I'll say. See you in the next video. Go Flames go, and, Merry Christmas, and be safe out there, and Happy New Year, and, just don't drink and drive, and don't drink and drive anytime, but especially this time of year, and, I'm enjoying this Calgary Flames run. The Grey Cup's here in town. I can dream that, maybe the Stanley Cup would be in town too, but we got a long ways to go before we can talk about that. So, as I say, see you in the next video.